So I talked today about why having a Sangha community is important. Here, we have to make a difference between being a Sangha member and having precepts, because living in precepts is one aspect of being a monastic, but being a monastic is something much greater than living in precepts. And I say this because it isn't often explained. Lama Yeshe talked to me about it. But usually it's not explained so much, and so it's something that you wind up figuring out by yourself as you remain as a monastic for many years. And so I thought just to share with you some of the observations I've made that may be perfectly obvious to you, but they may not have been perfectly obvious to me at the time I ordained, or maybe the depth of them weren't as obvious to me then as now. Okay, so like I said, being a monastic is much more than just taking precepts. It's much more than putting on the robes and shaving your head. Yeah. It's, I think it's a whole way you look at the world, actually. Yeah. You might say, well, wait a minute, all Buddhists look at the world in the same way. You know, we have the same Buddhist worldview. Yes, we do. But I think there's a special way when you really live as a monastic for a number of years, that becomes much clearer to you, because your life is really dedicated to the Dharma. And while there's many lay people whose lives are dedicated to the Dharma, when you're a monastic, it's by wearing the robes, by being part of a community, it's other people are aware that you've done that. When you're a lay person, not necessarily. You could be a very dedicated lay person, but when you go outside and you're traveling and everything, nobody even knows you're Buddhist, let alone a monastic. You dress them up like everybody else. When you're a monastic, then people notice, and it sets up a different kind of relationship with society. First of all, you can't just, say to yourself, well, nobody will know if I do X, Y, and Z. You know, if you're a lay practitioner and you're out in society, you may have precepts to not do this and that, but nobody's going to know if you're keeping your precepts or not, because nobody even knows you took them. When you're a Sangha member, if you act in certain ways, or even if it's not something strictly governed by a precept, if we let our mind or body or speech get out of control, it's not just, there's that nutty person over there, there's that nutty monastic over there. And so it makes you, there's two virtuous mental factors that are very important for abandoning non-virtue. One is integrity, a sense of self-respect. The other one is consideration for others. So when you're a monastic out in public like this mental factor of consideration for others has to be at the forefront of your mind, because you realize that how you act is going to influence other people in a way that how you acted when you were a lay person didn't influence other people. Okay, you getting what I'm saying? Because people notice. So it heightens your awareness of how your behavior influences other people. And since we're trying to cultivate bodhicitta, and of course some of the preliminary causes of bodhicitta are love and compassion for others, then we don't want to harm others with our behavior. Not just avoiding harming them directly, like any bad behavior would, but harming them by making them lose faith in the Dharma, or even make them lose faith in spirituality to start with. Yeah? Because if we, cause people to really question, oh, is spirituality something good in the world, or are spiritual people just all a bunch of fakes? That profoundly impacts how they live in the world and how they feel about their lives. Yeah? And so, in our process of developing love and compassion and bodhicitta, we want to take care of people in that way and benefit them in that way, and not harm them by making them lose faith in spiritual practice. Yeah. Either spiritual practice broadly or Buddhism specifically. Okay? And I say this because I get letters from people who, even people who have been long-term Dharma practitioners, but then somebody acts inappropriately, their teacher or some senior Sangha member acts inappropriately, and it makes the person really start questioning everything. Of course, if you really see things properly, you wouldn't question the Dharma just because one person acts inappropriately, because you would realize that the Dharma is much more than one person's behavior. But since sentient beings are not always clear in their way of thinking, they put everything together and they're likely to doubt everything just because of one person's actions. Okay? So seeing this, we don't want to harm people in that way, because we treasure our own spiritual yearning, and we see it's an important part of our own lives, and we don't want to harm anybody else's spiritual yearning. Yeah. Because that could be damaging for many, many, many lifetimes. Yeah. Okay, so it makes you more aware in that way. Also, by being a monastic, if you're part of a community, the community can do things that you as one person cannot. Okay? For example, as one person, we seldom have enough merit to receive teachings alone. Yeah, if we went to any of the well-respected lamas and asked them to teach us alone individually, probably not. It's not going to work. If you're part of a community and the community does it, then everybody's merit is pooled together in making that request. And then it's much more likely, in fact very likely, that the Lama, if they have time, will say yes, because they see, there's a whole group of people who are really serious, not just one individual. Okay? So it facilitates learning the Dharma. Yeah. And when, of course, the community requests teachings, unless it's teachings that have some prerequisites beforehand, then, of course, we invite everybody else to attend the teachings, too. Like Geshe Topke is coming at the end of this month, and Geshe Dado is coming next month. So we just invite everybody to come, and join in. So it really provides a service, I think, for society. Also, a community sets an example. we get so many emails. In fact, we just got one last year. I don't know, unfortunately, if you print any of these out, of somebody saying, and they live off somewhere, there's no Dharma center or anything, and they just said, thank you for existing. Yeah, you know, I can't do what you're doing, I can't live the way you're living, but it helps me so much to know that you're there and you're living that way. Yeah? So it inspires other people. It gives people a sense of faith in the world very often, because they look around, and especially this election year, you know, I mean, things are just crazy. And you guys haven't even been hearing the news for the last few days. It's gotten crazier. Yeah, if you could imagine it, it has. But then people say, oh, but there's this group of people, you know, on a hill in eastern Washington State meditating on love and compassion. There's a group of people who have precepts and are doing their best not to lie, not to distort things, not to, you know, create rumors and just criticize people and stuff like that. And so that gives people out in society a sense of, you know, there's still good in this world. You know? And of course, as we say when we do the food offering prayer, we are not perfect. You know, as monastics, we are not perfect. You should not think that we are perfect. And lay people should, in broader society, should not think that we're perfect. But the thing is, we're trying. And I think that having a group of people who are trying is inspiring for others. So when you're a monastic in this way, you're part of something that's bigger than yourself. And I think that all of us inside, we want to be part of something that's bigger than ourselves, because we realize that ourselves, in our current state, is, you know, yeah, we're doing our best, but there's a lot of limitation here. Okay? And frankly speaking, I think this is what ISIS preys on, is young people who want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be part of, we're doing something to create something new and wonderful. Of course, they're doing it for a limited group, and the means they're using are devastating and horrible. But I think there's some kind of human yearning that, you know, we can't, that is not satisfied just living our lives with I want what I want when I want it, and fulfilling all my own needs and wants and cravings. That we all want to be part of something that has a more long-lasting purpose. And so, you know, when you're part of a Sangha that has a specific role in society, then you are part of something bigger than yourself. So, for example, here at the Abbey, you know, I don't know of any other training monasteries for Westerners in the U.S. Yeah, there's a lot of Dharma centers. There's pockets of Tibetan monastics living together. But bringing the Sangha to the West, not just bringing the Dharma to the West, but bringing also the Sangha to the West, it's something that we are very engaged in here, that is a long-term mission, that is going to impact generations far beyond our own lives. Yeah? Because just looking historically, the presence of a monastic community is really important for the preservation and spreading of the Dharma in a certain land. It's really crucial. So, we're trying to do that. We're establishing that. It's gonna, what we do is gonna have impact many, many years down the line. Hopefully a good impact. But, so there's some bigger purpose in our lives than just, my Dharma practice. And my being happy. It's a much bigger picture. Also, I think that a community acts and a community of Sangha members specifically. You'll notice when I say Sangha, I mean monastic. That's the traditional use of the word Sangha. I'm not using the American use where Sangha means anybody who goes to a Buddhist Dharma center. That's not how I'm using the word. But I think the Sangha in many ways acts as a conscience for society. Because we're here, we purposely limit the stuff that we have. We relate to money in a certain way. We relate to food in a certain way. We relate to sex in a certain way. And these are all ways that are different than society does. So it's posing, just by people living in this way, it's posing a question to society in general of, do you need all the things that society is telling you need in order to be happy? Do you need a new car? Do you need to look a certain way? Do you need to have the latest technological equipment? Do you need to have a specific kind of partner who matches the image of the kind of person you want to be? Do you need to have a specific job and create a career and a name for yourself? Do you need to have a lot of stuff? Do you, it poses that question because we're living in a very different way. Do you need a lot of money? Is there such a thing as financial security? Everybody in this world is looking for financial security. Who has it? Nobody has it, no matter how much money they have. There's fear they won't have enough. I could use some more. And here we are, creating, consciously cultivating in our minds the feeling of what I have is enough. And we're not going to starve to death so we can get on with our spiritual practice. Because otherwise, you spend your whole life worrying about money. Isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's what people worry about all the time. Do I have enough money? And we're never going to have enough money. So as monastics, we just accept that. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have security. But what is security when you grow old? Does money bring security in old age? It might get you a nicer bed. But is a nicer bed what is going to make your mind happy when you're old? What is going to, if you live that long, what is going to make us happy? Is it being in a nice nursing home with beautiful pictures? Yeah? And maybe children that come to visit you, I won't say how often, but sometimes. Is that what you're counting on for happiness in your old age? When we look at our teachers, at least I look at my teachers, because most of them were fairly old when I met them, in their 70s, in their 80s, no wife, no kids, not a lot of money, completely happy, their lives are meaningful, One of my teachers, Geshe Sangha, is the same age as my dad, and my dad would sit around and just watch TV all day. Basically, that's all there was. Geshe Sangha was out there teaching people and traveling and stimulating people's minds and contributing to the world. Same age. And it's like, oh, okay, what is going to bring happiness and satisfaction in old age? Yeah, my dad had a lot more money, but that can't do it for you. Okay, so we're posing this kind of question to the world. Do you need to control your own food and buy your own food and meet all of your own cravings? Yeah? Because this is what people do, You go out to lunch with your friends. Yeah, you stop by the supermarket on your way home to get whatever it is you feel like eating that evening. Do we really need to satisfy our own cravings? Or do we develop contentment simply to have whatever somebody else makes for us and serves us? Simply because we appreciate having food. Yeah? And cultivating a sense of contentment with that. Yeah. We're posing the question to society, can you be a whole person without a partner? Yeah. Because the way society is set up now, everybody wants to have a partner. And you don't feel like you're a whole person until you've met your other half. Yeah? And meanwhile, especially when you're young, when your hormones are raging, you're not terribly discriminating about who that person is. You think you're being discriminating. You think you're being wise and selecting appropriately. But let me tell you, once you get older and your hormones are not raging, and you look back at what you did when your hormones were raging, you realize that you lacked some wisdom. Some of you who are more towards my age agree or disagree?
Agree.
Yeah. But of course, if somebody tells you that when you're in your 20s and 30s, you think, oh, this person is nuts. They just didn't find the right one. Okay. But it's, monastic life is teaching you to, put it this way, it made me grow up. Yeah. Because I had to learn to handle my own emotions. When you have a partner, if somebody hurts your feelings, you go to your family, you go to your partner. Those people are going to tell you you're wonderful and you're spectacular and don't listen to that other person. And they're always going to be on our side until they aren't. But anyway, that's what we think at the beginning. They're always going to be on our side. Then you have a big fight and you realize, But anyway. And so whenever something happens in your life, you feel uncomfortable, you feel unloved, you feel you lack self-confidence. There's one other person who is committed to encouraging you and bolstering you up. Yeah? And when you're a monastic, there's nobody there. There's not one special person there who's always going to pat you on the back and tell you you're wonderful and don't listen to anybody else. Yeah. There's not one special person. So you have to learn to apply the teachings to your own mind and work with your own emotions and deal with your own emotions. Of course, when you have trouble, there's a whole community that you can go to. But the whole community, your Dharma friends, are not going to do what your spouse does, because your spouse has to tell you you're wonderful, and that they're on your side and they're going to protect you against all these other people who don't realize how wonderful you are. The rest of the community is going to say, oh, you sound angry. Yeah, you sound upset. What's happening? And then you have to own you're angry and you're upset. Yeah, and your Dharma friends are going to say, oh, why are you upset? Seems to be some attachment to the happiness of this life, aka the 8 worldly concerns. Maybe you need to sit down and do a certain meditation and balance your mind and figure out what's important in your life and what's not important. That's what your Sangha friends are going to tell you. Okay? So it brings you back to the Dharma and towards being responsible for yourself. Instead of just saying, I'm so upset and it's all their fault. Yeah, that doesn't work in a community. We try it. Don't we? We try it. Because we import all of our old habits from before into the community. And we try it. And we try it again and again. And some people really try it for a long time. And the community keeps responding in the same way. We have confidence in you that you can figure this out. This has something to do with transforming the way you're looking at a situation. You can do it. So the community keeps coming back with the same message, even though we sit there and stamp our feet. So eventually you get it, and you start applying the Dharma and working on your mind and growing up. It's a long, painful process. Yeah? But as you do it, it works. Okay? So, so the Sangha presents that kind of thing to society, and is just saying, what is success? What is success? What is happiness? Yeah. We wear the same clothes every day. Can you imagine? Yeah. Even my niece, when she was 7 years old, was astounded that I wore the same clothes every day. Even at 7 years old, she knew that something was wrong. You don't have a variety of things to wear. And we don't, do our hair and use our hair as something to beautify ourselves. Yeah. And we don't wear makeup, and we don't wear jewelry. So our jewelry doesn't beautify us, and our jewelry doesn't let people know how wealthy we are. Okay? So we're just plain simple. Same clothes. Same hairdo. Yeah. And we're happy. And we're happy. And we feel content even though other people don't flirt with us. Yeah. No, some people, they love it. They love flirting. And they love having other people flirt with them. Yeah. We specifically discourage that. Yeah? So, so can you be happy without people seeing you as attractive? question. Because nobody's going to like us because we look great. Yeah, they're going to like us because there's something in here. So do we feel okay with that? Do we have enough confidence that we can just be who we are without feeling we have to decorate ourselves in one way or another? Make ourselves
accessorized.
Exceptional. Exceptional. Yeah, it's getting on my words. Tongue twisters. Okay, so, we don't need to stick out. We don't need to be somebody. So it's posing this question to the rest of the world, What makes somebody's life successful? What makes somebody's life happy? You look at His Holiness the Dalai Lama and what he's been through in his life. He became a refugee. We aren't even refugees, But he was a refugee. He has a whole country, China, calling him names. No wife, no kids, no grandiose whatever. And yet he's a happy person, isn't he? Very happy person. So do we need what we think we need in order to be happy? Yeah. Sangha poses that question to society. And so I think these are very valuable questions to pose. Yeah. Now, of course, not the whole entire world doesn't even know that we exist, but for the few people who know that we exist, it poses that kind of question. And people come here, and people remark often when they come here too, how we recycle so much. We have very little trash because we recycle the food scraps and paper and plastic and, you name it, we recycle it, except for a little bit. And they say, oh, you're aware of the environment. Yes. Yeah, we're trying to protect the environment. Yeah. We don't just get in the car and go to town when we need something. We put a bunch of errands together and then somebody goes, So we're taking care of what our carbon footprint is in the world. Okay. So it makes people think in a good way and question in a good way. Okay, so that's some of why I think a Sangha community is really important, and why a community can do things that individuals can't. Yeah, because as one individual, people aren't going to notice. Yeah. Okay. Now, taking precepts is part of being a Sangha member. It's not all of it, but it's part of it. Yeah. So it's good to learn the precepts, because the precepts talk, they encompass our life, like this. The precepts actually, some people see precepts as confining. You can't do this, you can't do that. Yeah. I don't feel that way at all. I feel precepts are really liberating, because I've thought about the things that precepts proscribe, and I don't want to do any of them anyway. So in case I'm tempted to do it, having the precept, helps me not do it. Yeah, the decision's already made. Yeah, because sometimes for example, I used to be a dancer before I ordained. I love dancing. Yeah, sometimes you go to places and people are dancing. Not that you actively go to a disco or anything, but certain music and dance, like when we go to teach at UU on Sunday mornings, at the end, well, they're chanting, they sing during the service, okay? So singing is very nice. We love to sing, and maybe, yeah. So, but then you look at it and you say, okay, I like to do that, but what does it do to my mind? And do I really like the effect it has on my mind? And do I want to sing the kind of songs that other people are singing or not? Yeah. And when we go to the dentist, our dentist likes
soft rock.
Yeah. And you hear Beatles songs playing in the background, or Crosby, Stills and Nash, all the songs that my generation grew up with. And there you are, your memory, you're at Huntington Beach in Southern California again with all your friends, because that's what the music is associated with. It cracks me up. And then you have to look and say, okay, I thought that was happiness. Was that real happiness? Yeah. Would I want to go back and relive that? No, thank you. Actually, no, thank you. I don't want to get involved in that kind of thing again. My life has a different purpose. So, the precepts kind of protect you from those kinds of things. Yeah? And then, of course, the precept against intoxicants, the celibacy precept, it really makes you look at a lot of your past behavior and say, did that really make me happy? Would I want to continue acting like that now and doing that? Yeah. And you realize at some point, actually, no. Yeah, I don't want to do that again. You may realize attachment comes up for a certain activity. Yeah, that attachment may be there. But your wisdom mind is stronger, and you say, actually, when I think about it, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So the decisions are already made. It makes your life so much smoother. You don't need to go into crisis about, shall I do this, shall I not do it, shall I do it? It's just a little white lie. It's just a little bit twisting of the truth. And I get a lot of, gain in this life if I do that. Well, no, I've already thought about that. I've decided I don't want to do that. I'm not going to even ruminate about it. Yeah. So it clears up space in your mind. And it, the precepts, prevent you from doing things that create a mess in your life. And if you look, what are the main messes people have in their life? When you look around you in society, people have so many problems, so many messes they're in. What's the relationship between the messes they're in and the 5 precepts? Okay, I work with inmates. A number of them are imprisoned for killing people. Or you see at political rallies what happens when people get physically violent with others. I won't mention whose rallies. But, you see that. And that creates a mess, doesn't it? Stealing, not paying people what they deserve, what you've promised to pay them, or taking things that haven't been given to you, not paying taxes, not paying fees, that brings a lot of problems to people. Yeah, you get audited, you get, all sorts of things happen. I mean, look at the major scandals that we have about political leaders. They all have to do with the 5 precepts. Yeah. And then, even you get elected, you have to spend your whole term, you know, trying to deal with all these scandals that arose because of your bad behavior, instead of actually being able to do something good. And so even the people who aren't, I'm using politicians, but you know, even Wall Street people, even anybody, you know, why do people get in messes? What is one of the biggest messes people create in their family? Yeah, the 3rd precept, when they don't live according to the 3rd precept. Yeah, one partner or the other starts going off with somebody else. Yeah, it affects not only their relationship, it affects their partner's relationship, it affects the kids in the family, it causes broken families. It's a disaster, you know, if you don't follow the 3rd precept. Yeah? Or if you don't have protected sex, and then, you know, you have STDs to deal with, you know, and all sorts of health problems. Yeah? Liquor. Yeah, dope, misuse of prescription drugs, that causes so many problems in people's lives. Yeah? You wind up in a relationship with somebody who has a substance abuse problem, then you get dragged into it and you have to make excuses for them. That's what they call enabling. But you can't leave them because you care about them, but they're exploiting you because you so easily feel guilty, and I mean, this is the stuff of movies and soap operas. Okay, so you look, you know, just even this life, why do people have so many problems? Yeah. It's because of not keeping good ethical conduct. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, a lot of the guilt people experience, the anxiety they experience, you know, it's related to not keeping good ethical conduct. So you know, you really see the value of the precepts here. You know, how it keeps you, you know, how keeping precepts helps you to have more self-confidence. Because when we don't keep the precepts, we don't like ourselves. When we don't like ourselves, we don't have much self-confidence. Because we feel lousy about ourselves. When we keep the precepts, at the end of the day, we can look and say, wow, I did something good. You know, okay, I might have messed up on some things, I'll purify those. But I did keep my precepts, and that's good. And I rejoice, and you feel good about what you're doing in your life. And then when you die, you don't have all sorts of regrets. So, you know, the precepts help tremendously. I think just even living a sane life, this life, you know, let alone the beneficial impact that precepts have on future lives. Okay, let me pause here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Just thought when somebody is taking the precepts and doesn't join a Sangha, I know somebody who shared with me that he felt very alone because he didn't join his friends anymore to share all the pleasure he had shared before, keeping his precepts, but then there was no Sangha available either, so he gave up the precepts at the end because there was just no way of living to be connected because, yeah, of course he needs social relationships too.
Yeah. And this is one of the big problems of Western Sangha in the Tibetan tradition, is that there are very few communities, and the Tibetans, our Tibetan teachers, I mean, they're fantastic, but their main focus is on the Tibetan monasteries. Yeah, And so they're not set, they're not the ones setting up monasteries and things for Westerners. And, although in Vinaya it says that if you ordain somebody, then you need to provide, room and board, sustenance for them as well as teachings. In the Tibetan system, the ordaining masters don't feel that, because there's just so many Tibetan monastics. So as a Westerner, they assume, you're from a wealthy country, then you have access to money. Now, as we all know, just because you are from a wealthy country doesn't mean you have a lot of money. Yeah, but so because of that, many people ordain and then they have to go to work. Yeah, so they have to get a job in a city, putting on lay clothes, maybe growing their hair out, going to work at a job, then coming back home in the evening, maybe putting on their robes, maybe not because they're too tired, going to the Dharma center in their area where they're expected to work and do things, and they receive some teachings and all, but the Dharma center doesn't help them. So they're on their own financially. And then, like your friend explained to you, you don't have the joy of Sangha life because you're living alone. When you live in community, there's lots of people. You're not lonely. I mean, you can make yourself lonely if you want to. But there's people around, and you can talk, and those people know what you're doing in your life, and they respect it. But so if you live on your own, it's quite difficult because you don't have that support for your precepts, you don't have the support for your practice, so you get home from work, you're tired, you shorten your meditation session, you sleep late the next morning, and then slowly you're keeping up the precepts and your whole Dharma practice in general, loses energy because of the environment that you're living in. And so you don't have the pleasure of living in the Sangha and with the Sangha's support and your friendship in the Sangha. And you don't have the pleasure of living a lay life either, because you can't go out dancing and drinking, and you can't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and so you're stuck in between. And so as a result, many people in that situation disrobe, which is a great tragedy, I think, because they start out with a very good motivation and with a lot of sincerity. But because they don't have the proper environment, then things degenerate. It's quite sad.
Are there any negative karmic impact if someone disrobes?
Yes, there is, but it's better to disrobe than to break the precepts. Yeah. So if you feel like you're going to break one of the main precepts, better for somebody to disrobe. But yeah, of course, because you made a promise to the Buddha. And there are ways, Vinaya specifically states ways in which the precepts can cease, and you can return them, and that's a valid way to do it. I don't think that action in and of itself is so negative, but it sets up a habit pattern in your mind, which I think can be harmful. And also I think a number of people, after they give up, in one way they feel happier, now they can have a boyfriend or girlfriend or do what they want, but in another way they're missing something.
Is it like, do they talk about, what is the karmic effect in your next life if you have given up robes?
They don't talk so much about that, at least not in the Tibetan tradition. In the Tibetan monasteries, there's a lot of coming and going. Yeah, because many people ordain when they're children, and once they hit late teens, early 20s, In old Tibet, this didn't happen. Usually you ordained and then you stayed ordained because there wasn't much else to do in Tibet. Now, in India, there's a whole lot else you can do. Yeah, you can meet a Western woman and get married and go to the West and live in the West. You can go, make a name for yourself doing this, that, and the other thing. So there's a lot more people disrobing now. Yeah.
The thing you mentioned that sets a habit in your mind that got very strong transmitted in Taiwan, at least that message I got, affection can happen very strong. Even if you think it's just once, you just give up your precepts once this lifetime, but still it has a big impact.
Oh yeah, it sets up that.
Who knows what kind of experiences you will have in next life, just to become a monastic again.
Yeah, may make difficulties in becoming a monastic in a future life, or in being able to keep the precepts in a future life. When I always feel sad when somebody disrobes, because the ordination is so precious and such a treasure on so many levels, especially because you accumulate so much good karma and you purify so much just by keeping the precepts, that somebody would give up that opportunity. It feels quite sad. But you really have to continue to practice so that you have the Buddhist worldview and you know why you're holding the precepts. If your meditation practice doesn't really include the Buddhist worldview, then it's very easy to forget why you're doing this. And your wish for the happiness of this life, comes roaring back.
I remember His Holiness saying one time, the only reason a person disrobes is due to afflictions, and that really left a strong imprint on my mind.
Oh yeah. Yeah, His Holiness saying the only reason somebody disrobes is due to afflictions. For sure. For sure. When you look at why people disrobe, yeah, it's got to be because of afflictions. So it's sad.
I think it's a particular challenge for Westerners for living in community because of our cultural encouragement to be individuals and do everything on our own and be our own person, even though that's not true in a subtle sense of it, is one of the most difficult things of being in community, is to really get over that this is not just about what you want when you want it. And it's a huge struggle in the first few years because there's so much that wants to do that. We're not from a culture where collaboration and collective thinking is more common. So I think if you can get in and get through that, then community life offers a richness, I think, to Westerners that we don't have a paradigm for. That really, it has opened my mind on how the kindness of others comes in a much bigger way once we can get past this up by our own bootstraps kind of misperception. That kindness of others becomes a huge gift that really impacts your mind very deeply.
Yeah, very much. Because you can't escape seeing the kindness of others when you live here. And when you know every mouthful of food comes because somebody else went to work and earned the money and brought the food. Yeah. So the kindness of others is quite apparent. And just even having this building. Yeah. How did this building come to exist? It's not due to us. It's due to the kindness of other people. Yeah. So it becomes quite evident, I didn't do anything, and yet I get to enjoy being in this building. But it all came from others. And many others, many others.
So earlier in the year we had an older monk stay with us, Tenzin Kobe.
Oh.
And
he was newly ordained.
He was. He's a baby monk, but he's an older man.
Yeah.
You know,
An older man than a baby. Okay.
he said he had benefactors.
Mm-hmm.
Before he had ordained, he had had some yeshis come and stay with him, so he'd have people around. And I think he had a Dharma center where he was going, and he was helping teaching and stuff. But he seemed to be saying he was really lacking training.
Yeah.
Even with all that, he didn't have to work, he had financial support,
Mm-hmm.
but he was really lacking in the community.
Yeah.
Even though he sometimes had guests and stuff, that he had a connection,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the kind of training. And you can get online and have the teachings, but the training of everyday, how important is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, somebody may have Tibetan geshes staying at their house, yeah, but that doesn't mean that those geshes are teaching them all the time or commenting on their behavior or whatever, because the geshes are living their life, and the older geshes are going to be meditating and reading scripture most of the time. The younger geshes would sometimes like to go out and walk around, but they're not there to train you. And this is the difficulty with Sangha living in Dharma centers as well, is that the Dharma centers are set up for the lay people, so the Sangha doesn't get training. Don't do this and do that on a certain level, but, and you may have teachings on the precepts, but more training than that isn't available, because the purpose of the center is teaching the Dharma, and of course that includes the lay people. So unless there's a lot of Sangha members, the geshes are not going to be teaching Vinaya. And also, Tibetan way of doing things is very different than Western way. Tibetan way of doing things, they usually don't comment on your behavior. Yeah? If you live in a monastery, the way they will comment on behavior is in a teaching, they'll talk about a certain behavior and hope that the person who did it picks up on it. But unless you're very close to your teacher is not going to say anything right in the middle of daily life things. Yeah. So, and I think Tibetans especially handle Westerners with kid gloves, because Westerners tend to be very sensitive. And so if they were to call them out on something, people would get very upset. Yeah, that doesn't do much good. Although I remember one time, Lama Yeshe didn't do it. Sometimes he did it with individuals, yeah, once in a while. I've witnessed him do it with individual Westerners. But sometimes he would really call us out as a group. And one incident really made a strong imprint in my mind. He was teaching one evening. I can't remember what he was teaching about, unfortunately. But my problem. But he was, because Lama Yeshe was very funny and really, could communicate with people very well. So he was saying something, and the lay people in the audience were laughing and laughing and laughing. And the Sangha members knew what he was really meaning. And what he was saying about us. And we were all like, like this. And meanwhile, the lay people were laughing. So, if we just stay on time, we have 2 more minutes. I was going to talk about something else too, but it's too late to get into it. Yeah.
Into the beginning of the talk, when you talk about the impact of Sangha, just by the roads and all that. I don't know about here, but I think in Asia, it does. We do have projections of what we think Sangha is, and because we don't live with them, that also is the reason why we can revere Sangha. Like, just the robes is important. Yeah. But then living here, it's a bit of adjustment of having to see them as human beings.
Yeah.
With all the watts and all. It's a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you saying that, you know, in Asia, when you go to the temple, you know, you wouldn't eat with the monastics, you wouldn't discuss things with them, you know, you would go for teachings or counseling and make offerings, and that was it. And then you came here, and, you know, you're working with monastics and doing dishes with monastics in Asia. You know, you would just do the dishes, the monastics wouldn't be doing them with you. And, you know, nobody would be telling you to go get a pair of loppers and go do something. You know, and how difficult it was coming here. And it's like, oh, the Sangha are human beings. And they have personalities and they have quirks and they get irritated and, you know, they're not perfect. And that can be challenging when you are brought up with a view that, you know, the Sangha is, because I know when I went to live in Singapore, I was all alone, you know, there wasn't another Sangha member. And it was really something for me to get used to the way the lay people were treating me and what they expected of me. You know, it was really like they thought I lived on some cloud somewhere. Yeah. And so I had to be quite careful with things. There was one woman from Australia, and we became friends because with her I could laugh more, you know, and relax. She didn't have that kind of expectation.